Good day everyone. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dungeonland, a Gary Gygax model published in 1993, and it's a usual 32-page booklet with the maps and joined in illustrations and so on and so forth. Now the actual adventure as written comes to about 25 pages of the 32-page book. After that then is new monsters and magical items as filler to make the whole thing come to the usual 32-page format of the Dungeons & Dragons model for non-for back in the day. Now this model is different from usual models or usual expectations of models, in as much as when you think you go to the usual dungeon, see a monster, kill a monster. Gygax has thrown a curveball here. Now back in the day when he played this model with his usual characters, people who played with him, they used to go into Castle Greyhawk and go open the room, find out what was in the room, destroy the monster or the trap, and then overcome what was ever in there. Every now and again Gygax will throw a curveball by putting a dimensional doorway or a dimensional entranceway where they go into a different universe. And in this particular case, the universe was at the bottom of a shaft, which by means that he didn't totally go and explain, but you had the characters falling into that shaft, and then when they start falling down the shaft, they come across rooms, and they're brushing past into the bottom of the shaft. As they reach out to these rooms, which are small, they pick up magical items. Shield +1, axe +2, potion of extra healing, and so on and so forth. And each character has 4 attempts to get these things. Now that's the clue, because it happened to a different person in a book some time ago. And when they got to the bottom of the shaft, they find a drink which says "drink me," and there's a small doorway that leads off from the hallway that they see when they reach the bottom of the shaft. That's the second clue, and the very quick-witted players will soon realise that this is actually Alice in Wonderland. And so this is the kind of model that Gygax wrote, which is based on the book, and the characters that in the book are in this model, only they're different, and they also brought in Dungeons & Dragons terms, or should I say advanced Dungeons & Dragons terms. And so when they go exploring, they come across such various places as a tiny garden, and in this garden they encounter several different creatures which either attack them or don't. Mostly with Gygax, usually attack them, so they have to find ways of actually overcoming those creatures in there. Now, there's certain parts of it, like having magical effects being inflicted on the characters when you come across a plant or a drink or eat something in the dungeon, and of course the effect could be beneficial or they could be painful. It really depends on what dice roll you have when the tables come up. Like for example, there's one here with magical effects, and you get boldness, you grow, you have your speech acts like a suggestion spell for several turns. You can actually to become sweat water, all sorts of strange things like that. And of course it sort of emphasises really the strangeness of the place that they actually visit. Now, in this particular part of the model, you've got a person called Charles, the Senile Archmage. There's a description of him, and the outline of what he can do, and the spells he's learned, and what he would do when he meets the characters, and how he would react to whatever situation they come across. Here's the thing, he's a mage who has to sit down and memorise spells, and there's a list of spells there, such as reverse gravity, maze, time stop, and so on and so forth. Which give me the biggest anomaly of them all in this actual model is, if he is senile, how can he remember and learn the spells that he has to learn every single day in order to cast them? The whole premise of the Dungeons & Dragons, or the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, is the advancing system where they sit down and learn all the spells they want to cast for the following day. And after doing some gestures or incantations or destroying spell components, the spell goes off. But it's always given that you have to remember the spells. So when this guy is senile, I would have thought that you find it very difficult to remember how to do the spells in the first instance, and let alone cast them. Because right, you may learn all the spells, fine, but will you remember them when you cast them? Yeah, that's a big anomaly. So it's the kind of thing the Dungeon Master has to look at and very quietly sidestep. Now in my situation when you run this, I would say he's not senile. He's just a little bit, he thinks differently from everybody else, you know. He's not normal in the way of thinking, which is why he acts the way he does. I mean, if you imagine something like Sheldon Cooper on speed, then maybe that's the way to do it, play this particular character, which will explain the kind of weird ways he acts in the model itself. So from there you go to different parts of the dungeon, and you got the woods and the trees and the giant fungi, which is basically what happens when you go into the woods and the trees and the giant fungi area, and you meet some creatures like a bear, and the Smiling Cat is actually met there as well. Now the Smiling Cat is the Cheshire Cat in the book, in the Alice in Wonderland book. Sorry, got a little bit with my tongue then, blah blah blah. Anywho, the fact is the Smiling Cat is the Dungeons and Dragons terms of the Cheshire Cat, and this one can actually make himself invisible by becoming ethereal in any one he desires, and so on and so forth. So yes, this is the kind of creature that is in the book and put into this model, given Dungeons and Dragons tale and distorted. Well, you know, if you're quick on the uptake, or your players are quick on the uptake, they will recognize this almost straight away. Now the map that shows the wood, the trees and the giant fungi is a very confusing map indeed. And my suggestion for you, once you've got it and printed off or whatever, is colour it in. Colour the trees in, colour the parts, colour the little bits and pieces, and you meet with the key, the X would be like red or green or yellow, whatever colour you prefer. So that when you come to actually running the model itself and explaining where the characters are going and which direction they're going to and so on and so forth, they can meet whatever it is ahead of them, and then you can go from there. It will make it far easier for you to see at a glance exactly what is there, because the map as it's done in the model, it's a little bit confusing and there's a little bit of work to look at and so on and so forth. I mean, make life easy for yourself, why not? So we got the usual wandering monster table in the garden, spiders, stag beetles, giant lizards and so on and so forth. Then you have the wilds of Dungeonland, which filled with creatures like giant dogs, ticks, kibatoans, and these are frog-like creatures that with intelligent have weaponry in hand and so on and so forth. This again is put into the thing where you would never expect a kibatoan to be seen, because in the mythos of Dungeons and Dragons, there are creatures that live under the ground. So again, that's sort of adding to the strangeness of the model and the adventures and the creatures you actually meet. Then you have a mansion, and then the long hall. Sorry, let's repeating. Let's go through this model on my tablet. Right, and then we got the party, and there you'll find the Mad Hatter, who is actually in this mad, and there's a brilliant illustration of the guy in the book on page 19, and you can see that yes, he's not the kind of person you want to sit down and have tea with, and his trick is to throw hats at you, and underneath his hat is a kind of a weird sort of hat of holding, which is like a bag of holding, and you can get dozens and dozens of hats inside there. So you throw them at the characters, the hats, at random. When you pull them out, there'll be his own hat, and there's different effects. One such an effect will be a hat of imprisonment, where the hat enlarges and covers the target character completely. Another one would be turning the sheriff into an executioner's hood, and surrounding the person's head and suffocating them or killing them. A hat of command, where you have the person deciding to take charge on things, and so on and so forth. So these hats are all different, and of course if the a hunter shows him saying it's attacked, then this is the kind of thing he would do to prevent any attacks coming from him. As I said, he's insane. To play him as being actually insane will be quite an interesting bit of role playing to try and act at the tea party towards this guy. And he also has a hair, which I mentioned before. The hair is actually a human which has been polymorphed by the magic, the senile magic user I mentioned earlier on. And there's only part of the way through the change, which makes him absolutely insane. So he just converses, he makes pointless remarks, and remarks that have bear no relation to the conversation going on at the time. And if he's attacked, then he acts as a monk, and which is usual hit points, sorry, a level 9 monk, which means that anybody who attacks his hair will suddenly find themselves having a really, really bad time indeed. And the rest of the model then is all the kind of things you actually meet in the Lewis Carroll book, such as the Queen. She's there, the croquet party, and she's also a bit, well, left of centre, if you like, in the model, where she's not very bright, but she knows spells, such as Sticks to Snakes, Flame Strike, Beard Barrier, and so on. She's surrounded by the court, and the court is one that's almost as bad as she is. But in this particular model, they call the Queen of Cooland. There's a King of Cooland as well. There's an executioner, if you remember from the Lewis Carroll book, where the Queen streaks off with the hedge. He's there. So that part of the model gets to where the characters encounter the Queen and the people. And there's a prince who wants to steal all the treasure, and he plants some of the treasure on the playing characters. Now Gygax here does what I call a force move, where the playing characters don't have choices in what they do. It's going to happen to them anyway. So even if they see this prince doing what he does, they're not going to stop him, because Gygax insists it's not going to be stopped. So basically what he does, he steals jewellery. In order to make himself look innocent, he plants the jewellery on the playing characters. So when the Queen tries to find out who's stolen, we see them on the playing characters and trying to arrest them. And from that scenario, then there's a big fight in the palace, and there's a lot of confusion as to who's doing what, why, when, and how. And the playing characters are asked to actually get after the prince and chase him in order to resolve the situation. It's difficult to actually run that part of the model, very simply because in the real world, the Queen would catch these playing characters and execute them right away and chop off their heads. But in this model, Gygax makes the assumption that they actually avoid capture in the middle of the palace grounds, and actually will run after the prince to stop him. So there's a lot of the characters that you meet earlier on in Dungeon, like the Mad Hatter and the Smiling Cat. They're all there and fighting the player characters, so they will have an extremely difficult time indeed of escaping that particular area in the court and finding the prince and make sure that they make themselves innocent. Which is, like I said, a very difficult thing to do, especially when everybody is trying to attack the playing characters, who naturally are going to defend themselves with whatever means they got, which again will also make it difficult for them to survive the battle. So this is not a very well thought out particular part of it, I would have thought. So the Dungeon Master will have to work a little bit harder to get that scenario and work around it, or find ways and means of getting towards the end of it without the player character being totally killed, or he can actually avoid the prince idea whatsoever and just simply role-play a scenario in the court involving the kind of characters that are there and how they act to the playing characters. You can have a little bit of fun with that. I suppose the best way to do it really is the playing characters have to avoid saying words or sentences in a form that might be offensive to the Queen, so you have to be as diplomatic as anything in order to survive the court. Perhaps that's one way. So just leave out the prince and you should be fine. And the rest of the model is basically an afterword where the author Gygax describes what had happened when he had all the other playing characters playing it. There's only a small little thing about that. They say that they introduced Dungeonland and also the sequel, The Land Beyond the Magic Mirror, for the characters who actually, as I say here, they came back and played it a few times, like Gary Gygax, Rob Kent, Terry Kent, Don Kay, Don Arndt, Skip Williams, Brian Bloom. All these people are familiar with those who are interested and know about TSR's history and all the dungeon models and adventures and campaigns that were made back in the day. These guys are familiar with some of the spells that Gygax talks about in his player's handbook. They're derived from some of these chaps who invented the spells or have their names distorted and changed to have the spells. Right, so the rest of the model, as I said, then it's the creatures. You've got the Executioner's Hood, the Hangman Tree, and then you have the magical items like the Deck of Illusions and the Hat of Disguise. And there's maps in the book which give the description of the area. And yeah, this thing about this model is it's not one that you come back to again, despite what Gygax saying. Because the characters who played it, they came back, he said. It's a one-off, this model. It's not one that you go and put into a campaign unless you're bored with the campaign and you seek a change, or the players are a little bit bored with the campaign and they seek a little change. You can insert this in there, play it, and then forget about it. Once the surprise of actually finding himself in Alice in Wonderland's area as a dungeon, once it wears off, then it's not a unique experience to actually want to return to again. It's fun seeing the creatures change into Dungeons & Dragons terms, and it's great interacting with them. But at the end of the day, it's a kind of, I suppose it's like a candy floss. Once you've eaten it, you forget it. And it's the kind of thing you get with this model as well. Playable, great for the first initial time, but you'll never want to go back to this model again to play it because the surprise is done. The creatures are there, you've seen it, you played it, it's a bit meh at the end. So yeah, interesting model, interested in some of the creatures in the book, played in Dungeons & Dragons terms, and interesting to see the kind of action that the playing characters have whilst interacting with the said creatures. I mean, it's not my cup of tea. Maybe some people will get far more enjoyment out of this model than I did. But it's up to you. So whatever you think, put it in the comment section down below. And enjoy your day. Rock on.